Hello everybody. We're going to take a look at Unit 1.1G, and this deals with integers, which means whole numbers, and absolute value. So let's take a look at the problems. They're asking us to evaluate these 6 problems. So question 1, evaluate the absolute value of 54. Evaluate the absolute value of negative 49. Evaluate the absolute value of 59 times a negative. Okay, so this is a negative. We'll talk about that in a minute. And here we have evaluate the absolute value of negative 49, which is then basically multiplied by negative 1. It's turned negative. And in this question 5, we have a negative 54 in parentheses, and we are going to make that negative. And then the last one, we have a 6, positive 6 in parentheses, so there's no plus sign, but we know it's positive because there's no other sign. And it's asking us to make that negative, okay? So let's take a look at some of the thinking behind these problems, and we'll go to the tablet and see what we've got. So absolute value brackets, anything that comes out of those brackets is going to be positive. And sometimes we tell people to think of this as the distance from 0 to this number. So the distance from 0 to 54 is 54. And the distance from 0 to negative 49 is 49. And if you think about it, distance can never be negative. Distance is always a positive value. So, because if you have two things that have 0 distance, they're side by side, and then you can't push them through each other. So the distance is either 0, which means there's no space between them, or positive. Anyway, if that helps you to think about what absolute value is, awesome. Please do. So our first answer, the absolute value of 54 is 54. And so one way to think about this, when you take whatever's inside this bracket outside the brackets, it's going to be positive, okay? So let's apply that thinking here. The absolute value of 49, when it comes out, it's going to be 49, positive 49. Okay, so that's going to be helpful when we come to the next problem. If we're thinking about our PEMDAS rules, parentheses, exponents, multiplication or division, addition or subtraction, we have to go in order whenever we see a problem that we're asked to evaluate. So here we have a 59 in these absolute value brackets, so that we know that to bring that outside those brackets, that's like one step in PEMDAS. Oops. And so when we have PEMDAS, these absolute brackets are considered a type of parenthesis, right? So 59 would come out positive, and then it's saying to make whatever comes out negative. So whatever comes out will be positive, then we have to make that negative. So when it comes out from behind the brackets or from between the brackets, it's 59. But then when we apply the negative sign, right, this number becomes negative 59. So think of this as 2 separate steps. One step to come out of the brackets and then apply the next step in PEMDAS. And effectively, this negative sign is like multiplication. You're multiplying by a negative 1. So that will just apply the negativity to this positive result, and you get negative 59. All right, let's look at the next one, where we have negative 49. So the absolute value of this is going to be, predictably, 49, positive 49. But then we have to make that negative. Let's go with green this time. So when we apply this, it's going to make our 49 negative, right? So this gives the same result as the one before it. Even though we had positive 59 in the absolute value brackets, anything that comes out of those brackets, if it's positive or negative, will be positive. So when it comes out, it's positive. And then the next step in PEMDAS, once those brackets are gone, we were supposed to make this, whatever came out of these absolute value brackets, negative. So both numbers end up being negative, even though one was positive and one was negative to start with. Now let's go to the next problem where we have negative 59 in parentheses. Okay, so when we are doing PEMDAS, we're usually looking for an operation that's taking place inside parentheses. Here we just have the negative sign, so it's not really an operation. It's just showing us this is a negative number. So these parentheses are often used around a number when we have when multiplication is implied. So here we have a negative, and if we think of this as negative 1 times negative 59, then when we do a negative times a negative, we get a positive. So the answer here will be 59. And just because the shape of these parentheses is different, they're not absolute value brackets. So this is going to be a negative times a negative, giving us a positive. And then over here, the next problem, we've got 6 in parentheses. So it's going to be the same kind of principles applied. And it's going to be a negative times a positive, which always gives a negative result. So we get negative 6. So this, in a nutshell, is a summary of the absolute value properties and how they work. So if you can do all 6 of these problems flawlessly, that'll be awesome. Let's take a look at, see if I can find it here. Maybe I can't. I think it's here. All right, so let's put in those answers. Oops. All right, so the first one we said was 54. We'll go check them one by one. So that one was good. This one, we said 49, that's positive. And you don't have to put a positive sign, right? It's assumed. This one, we got negative 59. This one's kind of tricky. But just think of it as a PEMDAS problem. When the 59 comes out, it's positive, and then you apply the negative. Okay, that one was also correct. Similar to the last one we did, negative 49 comes out of the absolute value bracket says 49. Oops, almost made a mistake. And then becomes negative. All right, got to be careful. Practice a lot. Practicing a lot helps. So here we had a negative being applied to a negative 54, which gave us a positive 54, or just 54. All right, and then the last one, we had a positive 6 where the negative was being applied. Think of it as a negative 1 times a positive 6. You get negative 6. And if we got this right, then we had a perfect score. And you might want to try similar problems here. And if you run into trouble, just message me. Choose my name from the recipients list and just click send. And I'll try to get back to you within 24 hours and help you with that problem. Good luck.